Okay, so I just put off the head off my 16 valve 4AG. It wasn't too terrible. It was my first time doing it. I just found like an online shop manual and it helped me a lot to try to remove it. So I decided to post a little YouTube video and kind of give y'all pointers or ideas on how to remove the head off a 16 valve 4AG. Alright, so first thing you want to do is make sure that the motor is at top dead center. The only way to do that to make sure is you spin the motor and make sure that the markings align up here where you have like a little indentation here. I can show you here better. There you go. See that there's a little indentation there with the dot there, and that's the intake side. You want to make sure that those line up, and also on the exhaust side there too, that it lines up too. And then you want to make sure that your crank pulley lines up to 0 for TDC. Once that's done, you want to remove the pulleys here. You have to remove the water pump pulley here. Gives you better access to the bolts behind the timing belt cover. And you also want to remove this 17 mil bolt. It might be pretty hard if you don't have a power tool. Hand tools, I'm not so sure how you can maybe remove it, but I used a impact for this thing and it just broke the bolt real easy without even moving this pulley here, which is pretty good. I'm thinking if you have to use a hand tool, you might have to wedge something in here or something to prevent the wheel from moving while you're loosening the bolt. So once you get this loosened, you have to pull this out. So you can use a gear puller. You can rent one from AutoZone, and you just kind of line it to these holes here and it just kind of pulls it out. What I did is I just used a piece of wood and a rubber mallet and just kind of banged on the sides here, and it kind of popped it off loose. Once that's loose, you get exposed to these timing belt cover here, and you can remove that. And then once you remove it, you'll have better access to the timing chain tensioner, and you can loosen that so you can pull off the belt completely. So once that's out, you want to pull off the cam valve cover here. So it's just 4 bolts on each side here. You remove those. It's a 10 mil, I believe, or a 12. You also want to remove the spark plug cover here too. Also, mine's coil unplugged, but you know it's the same thing with the distributor 4AGs, so doesn't matter. So once you get this off and loosen the bolts and take them off here, you can remove the valve cover here. What I did is I just used like a rubber mallet, and I kind of tapped on the sides here to kind of loosen it, and then I just kind of picked it up and it came off nicely there. No issues. And that will expose the cam gears, or sorry, the camshafts. So in this motor, which I'm working on, you know, you remove the valve cover here, you're exposed to all this here. So you want to remove the cam gear in order to get this off here. So what I did is I used like an adjustable wrench, which is this guy, and I just kind of adjusted it here on this little notch there that they have in the middle of the camshaft, and I tightened it up and I held it pretty good, and I just used an impact here to break this, I believe it's a 14 mil bolt, loose. And then once it's loose, you can pull out the cam gear, and just want to make sure that it's aligned with the notch here too. You want to make a note of that when you because when you put it back, you don't want to forget it. I also label my stuff so at least I don't get lost on what I have to put it back in. So put this back over here. Alright, so after you remove that, you actually have to remove the timing belt cover, the back part of it here. I already moved mine, and I'm not gonna probably put it back on when I put this motor back, but anyways, or actually I will because it has the markings. But anyways, it's like 7 bolts. I believe they look like 10 mil bolts that you just loosen up once you remove both the cam gears, and the blade is back here. So once you remove all that, you get exposed to this here, and then you can finally start removing the camshaft here. So on the manual it states you have to remove the bolts outside to inside. I just loosened them all up first. I loosened up outsides, then worked my way inside. I just made sure they're all loose, and then I just kept on doing it, and then to the point I can just twist it off by hand. You want to do it uniformly just so that you don't mess up the crankshaft. So once it's loose, then you can start removing it. One mental note you want to make sure is that you do align it back properly. Again, there's actually markings here where it'll show you which side's which. I think you can see here it has like E4 on it, and there's an arrow. This arrow points towards the cam gear, and E4 means just exhaust side, and it's like number 4 right here, and it's 4, 3, 2, and then the cam here. So you want to make sure it's in that order. So it's cam 2, 3, 4, and 5. You don't want to mix that up there. And I'll just remove this here. It's pretty easy to remove. I just used hand tools for this one. I didn't use power tools to break these bolts loose, because last thing you want to do is strip a bolt or make a bolt round, and that would be too good. So I just used hand tools. One thing I want to mention is this part right here was kind of hard to remove, even with this part were all loose. It's because you have like some gasket sealer here on the sides. So what I use is like a piece of screwdriver, which kind of pried this open in the back, and also on this side here too. I used a little screwdriver there too, and it popped open, and I just did that. All right, and then you have the valve cover, or the camshaft seal here, the cam gear seal. So make sure that when you place it back in, it's a new one, and also that this side, I guess the deeper side, goes towards the block, and this one faces the cam gear. So you don't want to mix that up either. And I also took a note of where these notches were at, because there's going to be different alignment. Like the intake side, the notches facing up. This on the exhaust side, it's kind of facing down to the right side here. And then what I did, I used a piece of, or a small screwdriver. I kind of just popped it open, and popped right off real easy. So once you do that, you can get access to the head bolt. One thing to note though is you don't want to mix up the intake, or the intake and the exhaust side, but it's real easy to tell because the exhaust side has the gear for the distributor here, so you don't have to worry about mixing that up. But I always label it anyway, so I put down intake on that side there. So once you do that, you'll be exposed to these head bolts, which I already moved, but it's those right here. You can't really remove it unless the cam gear is out. There's no way around it. It's too tight, it's too tough. So you have to remove the cam gear or camshaft to get to the head bolts. It's pretty easy. I just use like a 10 mil multi-point socket. Looks like this here, and it's just, you don't need a special tool for that. You can go to Harbor Freight or something and they have it. If I can get this to focus. Let me see here. Yeah, so right here you can kind of see it, but yeah, just a regular 10 mil socket there. Alright, so once you there's a sequence to loosen it up though. You start from the outside basically and kind of do like a star pattern. So you go like 1, 2, 3, 4, then 5, 6, then 7, 8, 9, 10. So basically you're loosening it from the outside to the inside, and I broke it off like maybe quarter turn on each side till they got pretty loose, because you don't want to make one side too loose and the other side's too tight, because you can warp the head. So you want to take your time doing it. And once you remove it, you're able to pull out the head bolt, and you just want to make a mental note that's 5 bolts per side here. So there's 5, there's 4 here, because I want to make a little note is that the exhaust side head bolts are longer than the intake side, so you don't want to mix that up either. And they come with washers too, so you don't want to lose those too. But once you remove it, then you can actually pull out the head at this point. Doesn't take a whole lot of force. You can actually just pull it up. But if you're having a hard time, you can use like a screwdriver and kind of wedge it between here or kind of up here too also, and it'll kind of pop it open to where you can, or pop it loose where you can actually pull it up. And that's pretty much it there. Hopefully that helped some of y'all out there trying to work on your own cars here.